Hi everyone, this is Boris, Sketchman Boris, and welcome to another. It's not a comic book, but it's a book about a cartoonist, so I think it has its place in my channel. So, yes, I'm going to be talking about Robert Crumb again. Just a little bit of history. So, this is everyone, not everyone, but like a lot of great influential artistic figures, artists, filmmakers, publishers, producers, they all like tell their commentary or their when they met Robert Crumb and about talk about his art, which is very important to me, I think. And it's also a little like a mini history of the underground comics at the time, and I would say a history of comics in general, because I think Robert Crumb has impacted and still impacts, I think, a lot of like. I mean, imagine me, like I'm a guy. I just came across him in a free like a documentary that is on YouTube called BD and Sex, which is about bande dessinée and sex. So that's what I learned about Milo Manara and of course Robert Crumb. Um, and there is something, and I think people will say it, and I've marked a lot of things that I found interesting. And we're not going to talk about everyone, but and I didn't also read. I'm not going to say I read everyone. I just skipped the ones where, like for example, like producers or like publishers. Yeah, okay. I was close to, I was reading the cartoonist though, because that's what's interesting to me. But I read like I would say 90% of it. Um, and I also found like so just to finish the thought, what um what's appealing for an Indian guy who grew up with, and he's just, I think he's so honest. He taps into this something really deep, dark inside of us that we want to express, and we don't, and we can't sometimes. Even if we can, we don't. Um, and I would say, like, even he is like, so we have Terry Gilliam. He might be the best artist that I know, because he just expresses himself without any limitation, and he makes full use of of the art form of comics and comic strips and cartoons. So I will always be grateful, just like a lot of people here, and I am glad that I am, and I'm proud that I am Robert Crumb's fan. I know that a lot of people have problems with his cartoons, but that's uh, that's up for a great discussion. Um, and here, so I've just marked some pages here. So this is by so let's see what some people say about Robert Crumb. So this is Jackson. This is an underground cartoonist. I've never heard of him, by the way, but says perhaps that's why artists tend to see themselves as their own worst enemy and are so fucked up in general beneath all the pretense. They know they're cashing on a gift. So he's commenting about the fact that Robert Crumb actually, just like cartoonists like Calvin Hobbes, Bill Watterson, they didn't give in to the commercial. They didn't sell out, basically, to be in short. And in a way, I also feel the same way, because it's true that like I have this wonderful. I mean, people don't want to use the words gift, but it's just semantics. But I do feel like I have a gift of like having images in my head and being able to draw them from imagination. I can draw pretty much anything, right? Like, and especially now, I'm like at a point where I've practiced, and I'm really proud of that. And then now you have this. I feel like I have this responsibility, but at the same time, like you want to make money, and then you just feel like you are selling out by just giving this art form, exchanging it just for money, and it's, I don't know. I just thought that that was very poignant to me, looking at it like that. So yeah, let's. So I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to take the most poignant things that I've seen. There's here Robert Armstrong is a musician. So here again, he comments on that, which is also related to the that one. The lure of money and fame is not a motivating force for Crumb. He can remain coolly detached from opportunities and financial gain that most other artists only pray for, but dangle a rare 78 RPM record in front of him, and he'll practically be on his knees. So this is showing that he's like obsessed, and his love for the old music and the old records, right? And actually, if you watch the movie, the documentary about Crumb called Crumb, directed by Terry Swigoff, you can see that. Like he's just, and he might be right. Like there is that soulfulness in the music has been lost, I think. I mean, what am I to say? I don't know a lot about music, but same could be said for comics, right? Like, yeah. So this is about the art style itself. So this is Trina Robbins. Actually, Trina Robbins had some bad things to say about him because she's a feminist and she didn't really appreciate it, and I like that, like, because I think. But then later we have another female cartoonist. She's sort of like very complimentary. Most people are very positive about Crumb, and most of them, let's be honest, are men, and most of the cartoonists are men. We know that. We know that, and she just says like, yeah, and I do believe it, because it's difficult to put yourself in someone's shoes and read something like I'm from India, but I know, like, I can enjoy a good laugh about Indian people if people make fun of Indian people, but there's deep inside me, there's something there that is stuck that makes me a little bit uncomfortable, and that's not going to stop me from, like, for example, if I'm watching a comedy sketch where they make fun of Indian people, it makes me uncomfortable a little bit, but at the same time, I'm not going to stop watching because of it, because I think that's what art should do. It should make you feel things, and even if it's an uncomfortable feeling. So, yeah, so she says like, yeah, what stood out about his was his nostalgic looking style. So yeah, and actually, now that she, like, she says now that I noticed that, he likes old stuff, right? Like, so, I mean, I'm talking about Robert Crumb. Robert is also influenced, everybody's influenced by something. I mean, now Robert Crumb influenced like a whole generation of cartoonists that we consider as masters. He was influenced himself by, of course, the whole music that he loved from the early 30s and 40s, or like and he was also influenced by old cartoons from that era, like the old black and white cartoons. Actually, you can see it in his art style, those rounded boots and those round shapes, and they come from those cartoons. So, okay, this is Trina Robbins again, but she says, even though Crumb himself readily admitted it, and I can think of at least 3 instances on his comics where he admits it on the printed page. So this is basically she's saying anti-woman hostility. So, for example, let me read that. I was horrified. It was very hostile to women. Now, I hadn't even heard of the term women's liberation yet. I don't think the term had yet been coined, but I knew anti-woman hostility when I saw it, and this strip, along with those of Crumb's that followed, contained a lot of it. The thing that was so frustrating to me was that none of the male cartoonists would acknowledge this hostile element in Crumb's work, even though Crumb himself readily admitted, right? Like, it's like he's very honest, and he just says it. But I think sometimes the others, they try to they don't want to talk about it, or they just say, oh, it's it's part of the appeal, and they find excuses. But actually, Crumb is very aware of that. Next one is here, and this is John Thompson, another underground cartoonist. And I found his story really interesting. So I found this section here. Crumb's Zap bore the influence of Basil Wolverton, right? So that was really interesting for me, because I've heard of Basil Wolverton from actually YouTube channels, just like Earl Grey, who's a really great YouTube channel. Shout out to Earl Grey. Yeah, he's also talking about Carl Barks, who's like the good duck artist. So this is. Wait, who is this? Is this the same person? Yeah, I think it's still John Thompson. Yeah. So I think I found his story interesting. I had to go for another one. Quite different from his personal life, his artistic life more freely expressed not only his personal neuroses, but the collective dysfunctions of American men, yet with a satirical flair. And I really like that. Um, so this is from Alan Moore, of course. And I really like that for my part, exposed to the EC line of comics. And so this has just made me smile to see just like Alan Moore was also influenced by EC Comics. But I guess a lot of fans of Alan Moore, fans of comics, know that already. But for me, who's not a big fanboy, and I'm just still discovering comics, which is a really interesting thing to do because it's very exciting when you just dig in and you find new things, even if it's new for you, and it's been known for years by others. So Highland Morris also says, for one thing, it was subversive in the way it commented upon race. Many cartoonists since Crumb have referred back, ironically, to the stereotyped image of black people that dominated the cartoons of the past. But this was the first time I'd seen a cartoon depiction of the Negro so exaggerated that it called attention to the racialism inherent in all such depictions. And yeah, so it's like now, and people do this. This is how art works and artists work, which is you imitate the artist that you admire, okay, and that you admire the artist that like you copy them, but then by copying them, you don't actually pay tribute. You think you're paying tribute to them, but actually you are just diluting it. So that's what he's saying. Like the other people who tried to do the same thing that Crumb tried to do, or the Crumb did, it doesn't feel the same, right? That's why he's like unique. So this one, this is from. I have to look it up. I think it's still Robert Alan Moore. Okay, he wrote a big piece, by the way. He also says that not only would the future probably be no kinder to us than the present, it would also turn us into remastered shit for the nostalgia mic. Okay, so Alan Moore is brilliant, and I think here, I don't know when this was published, and I was just looking, and it says. Like it says, 1998, right? And he's just saying like, no, we'll at some point become like remakes, right? So that's, I mean, he sort of predicted the future. I mean, he's not the only one, but I really love when you come across those moments. And there was like a lot of, I mean, of course, when you're talking about an artist, you should put his heart there. So. And it's just very recognizably Robert. Like I mean, people can try to do this, but it's like it's very. It's very much him. And I have to also, I mean, you have to mention that yeah, he has a great penmanship, but you have to also not forget his writing. He's also a great writer because he writes all this. So this is Roger Ebert and the film critic, and he just basically talks about when he met Terry Swigoff and he talked to him about Robert Crumb. And if you watch the documentary, I mean, you have to watch it. It's really a great movie. Because they also feature Max and Charles, the Robert Crumb's two brothers, who are also artists, but they didn't. I mean, they didn't become like Robert, but and blah, blah, blah. So it was success from his artwork, not the art itself. Just getting it on paper alone in a room obviously didn't help Max and Charles too much. So he's basically saying that the fact that Robert Crumb became success doing what he did actually helped him, right? And then people might think like, and I also have this theory where like you can actually sort through your problems just by expressing it, like in art or in whatever medium you're able to do, like even just writing or just recording, like stuff like that. And he's saying, like, that didn't really, if you compare like the three brothers, like it got Robert it kept him sane because he became famous and became recognized for it. But then just drawing and just putting stuff on paper didn't help Max and Charles, right? Like, so, but I mean, there are so many factors, because like if you take like Charles, who was he wasn't allowed to go out, and he was just, I think his mother just imprisoned him inside a house where he just had to read and reread the same books, and he just at some point it became difficult for him, and he just killed himself. And I think so I mean, this is not a spoiler, but like, because this is real life, it's not, but at the end of the documentary they actually say that Charles actually killed himself. So but then those are the things that I took note of. I mean, there are so many great stuff, and like I said, it's kind of like a mini history of the underground comics. So just to give you like a list of people who have contributed, I think I talked about it in a previous video, but if you find this book, I just found it by accident in the used bookstore. But if you want to get this book, if you like Robert Crumb, if you want to feel again, and it's also very appealing to me, because as a guy who's like not disciplined enough to create, and like I said, I feel, I know I have this gift. I know that I can do more. I know I can be more productive. I can create more comics. I can put more messages out there. But it's just like I get lazy, like many people, and I don't do it. But reading something like this, where you see people photocopying stuff and then running around, and then like just trying to make money with like just drawing, and like with all the difficulties they had, they still were able to be passionate about what they did and passionate about comics. And there was an art scene there that I find really appealing, even though there were like, bad things happening too, like not the drugs, but like, like the drugs were still not, the drugs were illegal, so they were still dangerous, right? Like, so, and violence, and but it was very appealing, that scene to me, because I think one of the things that artists crave is community, and you hear that word a lot, right? Like, but I think artists need that to sort of just to have a little bit of validation. I know that people like say, like, if you have a lot of followers, but actually, I don't know. I think just having people that you have to talk to about what you did and what you're going to do is actually very valuable. And so I hope that this was a little bit of introduction to you. I hope that you'll get this book yourself and read it, because I think it's mostly text though. So I just read this in like, I mean, with everything I'm doing now, I just read it in like 3 days. So it's very fascinating. So just go read it. And yeah, Robert Crumb, I have to say, is the best is the best artist for me. I don't want to say one of the best artists. I think he's the best cartoonist ever. So I'm just going to leave it there. So thank you for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe. I'll try to post like video tutorials and then more videos about comics and cartoonists, and because I love them, and I want to share that love with you. So I'll see you next time. This is Sketchman Boris, and stay safe.